So we've talked about the Knicks a lot on this channel throughout the season. I documented when I thought they weren't playing well and what I thought it could look like when they could reach that elite level as they did at times. And if you remember what we were specifically speaking of in terms of weaknesses, I feel like the Atlanta Hawks are one of the teams that are least equipped to really be able to take advantage of it. The teams New York struggles with the most, and the ones they're gonna struggle with the most, have very elite wing guys, guards, players who are going to be able to really make them pay for having cat and drop, really make it so Brunson has to hide. And I already think ATL has a couple of issues here with that specific point. First issue, they kind of have to have Dyson Daniels out there, and Dyson this season has regressed from three badly. There was a point he just hadn't hit one. I can't even remember the stretch of time. So already they have a guy for one of those two players to be able to just kind of hide and roam on. Dyson this year is damn near, and these videos have not dropped on this channel yet, so you might not really, the reference ain't gonna hit yet, but in some of the stuff I've recorded, I talk about if Tony Allen hit an open three, it just meant the sky was falling. Dyson Daniels falls under that category this year. If he hits a three, the sky is falling. So you're comfortable having Cat on him, you're comfortable having Brunson on him on a possession, and unlike the team that eventually will beat New York, ATL already has a free assignment. Their other issue with truly taking advantage of the Knicks long enough to beat them in a series, in my opinion, is if you watch them, and this still works out to the tune that I think they're going to win a couple of games, but the offense is so heavily reliant on moving the ball. That's a great feature of a good team, but when it's the bulk of what they can do, and they don't really have that superstar all the time, can get downhill / put guys on an island type player, really just your superstar creator, it fizzles out eventually. So yes, the Atlanta Hawks absolutely did lead the league in assists this year. You know who the two teams behind them are? The Utah Jazz and Toronto Raptors. You also have the Miami Heat at 5th. It's a feature of elite teams. It's not the entire product. And if you have not kept up with this team, you might have been looking at box scores this year and thought that Jalen Johnson is that all the time creator. He's not really yet. He can shoot, he can get his bucket from time to time. If this series will be your first time viewing the Hawks consistently this year, do not come into it expecting Jalen to be Kevin Durant, LeBron James, whoever you had in your head. It's not what the numbers say. He's good. That's not how the Hawks get their offense off all the time right now. And so when I was watching their latest matchup, I was trying to gauge, well, who really is their best option for this? And it kind of comes down to CJ McCollum at times. Nickeil Alexander is getting there, but even him, he gets a lot of his shots within the flow of the game. Granted, as the years go on, he may be that creator. And we've seen guys break out in playoff series before. I don't think it's on the level of the team I think is going to eliminate New York this year. And then back to the Jalen Johnson point, his defense is probably going to cost them. Being that he does play power forward for them, he doesn't really play good off-ball defense. I expect this to be something New York goes to create buckets. And don't let that starting lineup fool you. The Knicks can put out lineups that are incredibly hard to guard. They're like a different team in the fourth than they are in the first this year, if you've seen. For a team that scores the way Atlanta does, I think they're also going to struggle against the Mitchell Robinson minutes, especially in the lineup where there's going to be a guy you just kind of leave open. Moving the ball a ton and not being able to finish at the rim a ton in his lineups is something I anticipate. And speaking of lineups, yeah, I think New York just kind of clearly wins that battle. Whatever you heard about Kuminga in his first 2 games, that was not the entire sample. He has a questionable shot selection, and yeah, he might have a couple games where he goes off and gives you 20, he gets out in transition, maybe he finds his way to the rim. But as of right now, he's not an all-the-time creator. He doesn't really shoot the ball well. Meanwhile, now that Nickeil is not on the floor, now that Jalen's not on the floor, how do you create? You hope. Kobe over here. Let me stop. Kobe over here yeah, has one of those nights for you. So this is something we saw in the Cavs game where Jalen Johnson got in foul trouble. And now you've got a lineup where Jalen Johnson's shooting is replaced with Kuminga. And if you want more shooting, now you're digging into the Corey Kisperts, the Buddy Hields, guys who don't really keep your defense solid, don't have great length. And this archetype of wings with good wingspan and mobile guys, that's kind of ATL's. If you go back to the older videos on this channel, it's kind of how we knew Trae Young was out of there. We had been tracking that. It was me and Jelani. We did a MyGM about it. It was kind of clear the direction it was going. And that's why you see some of these guys not really getting that many minutes. Though I do think over the course of a series, you will probably see some attempts at it, because they're gonna have to find a way to keep up with New York scoring. Long story short, I'm expecting a couple of Hawks players to get hot enough, a couple of games where they've played enough defense to probably eke out to. I am not one of the people who's going to take the end of their season and just say, yeah, Knicks caught them at the wrong time, they're getting upset. Having kept up with these two teams, I don't think it's likely to happen 4 times. I don't think they're going to be able to pressure New York's weaknesses enough, and I'm giving New York's lineups the better chance to be the ones that catch fire and kind of break games open. Just one more note, again, when CJ McCollum got traded to this team, I told y'all he's an expiring contract, but he gives ATL a chance to also make the playoffs, and none of this really matters anyways because that pending pick situation. Well, yeah, that's what he's there for, and again, at the end of that Cavs game, foul trouble, you saw their options were CJ McCollum and Nickeil Alexander. That's what they were scrambling to create offense with at the end. Meanwhile, CJ is older, and he is another player the New York Knicks are going to take advantage of on the defensive end. I just don't see enough advantages for ATL. New York in 6. Welcome to the series we do not have a drop of footage on because somehow every Cavaliers and Raptors game happened in the first month of the season, so that wouldn't really be representative under normal circumstances, but then the Cavs are also basically a completely different team than Toronto saw at that time. But I also don't even think this is that complicated. Independent of how the two even match up, I saw this tweet a little earlier in the month, and Toronto finished 1-11 versus the East's top 3 teams. They are 2-18 versus the NBA's top 7 teams, and 5-22 versus the league's top 10 teams. That doesn't fully prove anything, that just aligns with my assessment of this team watching them all year and how I had them coming into preseason. They finished right around where I said they would. I have seen them as an average team, and even in some of the streams where we talked about them, I joked they really are more of a 2000s team. Not just the obvious jab at their lack of consistent or great three-point shooting, where they do their damage, the fact that their best defensive lineup down low features 2 guys who also don't shoot. And although we have little to go off of, I do not think Toronto features enough of what I think the team who eventually is going to eliminate Cleveland has. See, Cleveland's biggest issue is going to be they don't really have that one two-way guy they need. You have Harden and Mitchell on the perimeter, then your 3 is a mixture of Dean Wade, Tomlin, Keon Ellis, Drews. You just go down the line. It's nobody who is great at both things on both sides of the ball. And that's particularly an issue when you're playing with James Harden. And when all the great teams this year and contending teams have creators. That's true of almost any year, but I say this to say, yeah, Ingram can probably give them a problem. But even then, the Cavs are going to be able to zone up a bit because where they might not have a great 1v1 matchup against him, Ingram doesn't have great options to kick out to when that inevitable help comes. So with most of their damage coming from inside the 3-point line, I don't see them being able to generate enough versus what Cleveland will, because this is the type of series I think Cleveland is fit for. Their saving grace is that they have 2-star players that can randomly go on a hot streak, that they do have a lot of shooting, that they now have the ability to always have a star creator on the floor. And with that, I'm having to trust the Raptors as a whole to create enough problems without a lot of threes, and specifically guys like Ingram and Barrett to be able to create enough problems to overcome Cleveland's offensive weapons, and I don't trust it. Another big issue right off bat is Quickley has been out with it's been hamstring problems. And although he is very hot and cold, yeah, they need him. They need his potential to stretch the floor. They need his potential to maybe take advantage of Harden just kind of standing still, being a turnstile. Out of the few ways that they are going to be able to hurt Cleveland in playoff basketball, already being at a disadvantage and him coming into the postseason with hamstring issues, it's not a good mix. I don't want to make this one a ton more complicated than it is to me. I just don't think Toronto is going to be able to generate the offense for 4 wins, especially where even though Cleveland does run a ton of single big lineups, they have the option to just be double big. They'll have that lineup to be able to kind of make Toronto have to try to win this from the mid-range. Whereas how well can Toronto really shut the Cavs down while also being able to generate points? Not sure which matchup I'm putting first in this video, but I've already alluded to the Cavs and Hawks game. And watching that, you were seeing a team who couldn't generate a ton of offense when they needed to, kind of never really catch back up after Harden went on this run. And I can foresee that a couple of times in this series where Harden or Mitch just kind of create the distance, and Toronto not being able to consistently respond to that. I could see a world where this goes 6, but I feel pretty comfortable with the Cavaliers in 5 here. It's just fate, isn't it? We've got Minnesota and Denver part 3. Okay. Well, for the most part, Denver against almost any team this year, the footage is going to be so wonky just with all the injuries, and they're always missing a wing body, including in March when I believe they last lost to the Timberwolves. They're like barely gonna sneak into this postseason healthy, I think. As I'm recording this, we have a quote from Coach Adelman that says there's a hope Spencer Jones and Watson will play in Game 1. And Watson specifically, his hamstring issues. Okay, wing bodies are of vital importance for Denver. When they're short on those, you're now depending on Christian Brown to hit shots, and teams are praying that he shoots. You're potentially leaving Jokic exposed on the defensive end. You're being forced to play Bruce Brown minutes, who that's a gift to an opposing playoff coach. Just in terms of they now have a free assignment while they're trying to pay attention to Jokic and or Murray. So, specifically against Minnesota, can they win this series without either of them for multiple games or the entire series? Just because it's the Nuggets and we've seen them compete where maybe they shouldn't have before? The answer is yes, but I also don't want to get into a playoff series with Anthony Edwards' knee injury or no knee injury where I am short on wing bodies. And even though he and Randall don't complement each other great as stars, I also don't want to be dealing with Randall bully ball while I'm short on wing bodies. That being said, assuming one or both of them are going to be healthy, I do like Denver's chances. At this point, it feels like a rivalry. I know we remember Minnesota unseated them as champions in 2024, but there's two things to remember there as well. A, this Denver team is better than that one. They were already bleeding role players at that time. B, in my opinion, Minnesota was better, and they fit better at that time when they had Cat. The floor made more sense around Ant. I mean, the season he just had was pretty incredible, and especially if you watch Wolves basketball, some of the ways that he had to score really did look like a 2000s type shooting guard, having to just create things in a crowded space. So that's part of the reason they went out and got Ayo Dosunmu, combo guard. Helps alleviate the fact they haven't really had a true point guard to roll with, while also providing more space for Ant in certain lineups. It's another guy that can potentially pressure Denver. Yeah, I expect this to be a good series. Their Christmas classic was incredible. That's also where Jokic put up one of the greatest games of his career, as he has consistently put up very, very great performances against Rudy Gobert and just the Minnesota overall. I mean, a ball handling center who can also shoot is really Rudy's worst nightmare. Rudy provides a great defensive service to any team that he's on, but it's heavily centered around that paint area. I do think you'll see a good bit of Jokic not only creating his own buckets, but also doing his best to pull Rudy out of the paint, which in turn Minnesota could counter with having Randall as an initial defender. It's what a lot of teams do. They use a wing body or just the power forward and let their rim protector be the rim protector. Though when you do this against the Nuggets, this is just one of the reasons they are on the heels of a season where they were missing guys pretty much the entire time and still just posted the second highest offensive rating in NBA history behind the 24 Celtics. Yeah, with the way these two teams match up in 2026, and again, we've not seen these two specific rosters go at it healthy, I think you're going to see the Nuggets win it in 6 or 7. Oh my god, that was not on purpose. I don't expect Watson to come back at 100%. He's been in and out now for about 2 months. But if he's just there with the other guys, this is a series where you'll have the bodies to throw at Ant, and you're going to use some zone naturally. Edwards is still going to create. He's still going to get his buckets. But I don't think the offense is going to keep up with Denver's. When I say Ant and Randall don't complement each other as stars, what I mean is they get their numbers, yes, but a lot of the times you'll see Randall standing off on the wing and Ant's space is crowded, and he still might score on that possession, but that's just kind of his talent. Meanwhile, him having to score that way for a full series is not pressuring Denver's defense the way I think the team that will eliminate them is going to be doing. The playoffs is where you see those guys who only attempt like 2 or 3 threes a game really get tested. So J-Mac, who is essential to a defensive game plan against a Murray, is going to not be egregiously tested on that end. He can shoot it, but he is the kind of guy a coach is going to say, cool, let's up the volume a bit instead of giving the star shots. And now you're also not paying attention to Rudy because you know he doesn't always catch the ball that well. Sometimes his teammates just don't pass him the ball. That's two guys I think is going to let Denver's defense be a bit adventurous. It's going to take some of that all the time stuff off the table for the Wolves and then make them have to get creative with the lineups. So again, Wolves, good defensive team. Ant, superstar. You got a couple of guys that can shoot, a couple of guys that can put the ball on the floor. They're going to win some games. I have it at 6. Could easily see 7 games just knowing Denver's health situation. They might start the series for all we know right now. 1 or 2 games may be without 2 of the rotation guys. And that could very well contribute to some Wolves wins. You kind of then do what the Spurs just did, where they wanted Christian Braun to shoot 10+ threes. Denver had to get Bruce Brown on the floor. With those pressure points taken off the table, it's just going to take a Herculean effort from Ant to actually win the series this time. Yeah, Blazers Spurs also definitely falls under one of those series. I just don't want to overcomplicate. If you don't watch Portland, know the only thing Deni Avdija does is not just foul grift. He's actually kind of good. But as a team, as a whole, they are going to shoot a lot of 3-pointers. This is a squad that has been near the top of the league in 3-point attempts throughout the year and also near the bottom in 3-point percentage. Granted, they have a few guys who can hit on pretty high volume, but there isn't enough there to expect them to go winning a series against San Antonio. I don't even know if the series will be particularly good. I've watched some Blazers games this year, and sometimes it's as simple as, hey, Donovan Clingan started the game with 3 straight threes. They're on fire. They can't miss. And then other games where they start on fire and slowly drop off as reality hits and they lose to an elite team. It's kind of where I see this series going. Unfortunately, we're not in the timeline where Wemby vs. Scoot is some big headliner. Even back to the Deni point, quick first step can get downhill. San Antonio is uniquely qualified to handle players who don't shoot the 3-ball that well and kind of rely on getting to the rim. They've got plenty of perimeter bodies for this. Wemby is a paint defense all on his own. I'm going to say Spurs in 5 just because the Blazers might have a game where they hit a ton of the near 53s they're going to take. I was about to wrap this up by saying, hey, I want to be fair. Deni has gotten his game off against this team this year, but I went to triple check and yeah, Wemby actually didn't play in any of those. So I just don't know how good a chance they have at getting those driving kick 3s or Deni putting up these kind of stat lines series long. LeBron and KD meet again, and it pretty much is just LeBron and KD. As we know today, there will be no Luka in this series. There will be no Austin Reeves. I mean, what do we even do with this? Braun has still proven he can play in that role. He can still get buckets in that role. The way they were setting it up, he had kind of comfortably slid into that third option. He was taking a lot more care to facilitate, to get the other two going, or really just to not get in their way. And now he's just got to shift back into first option for the NBA playoffs on a team that just lost their 2 guards. His son is going to be getting some of those minutes. What timeline are we in? Yeah, look, I have been as worried about Houston this season as anyone else. It was always an uphill battle for them without Fred VanVleet. That got even steeper when they lost Steven Adams. And still, there's no world where Houston should lose this series. Funny enough, for all the things you hear about Amin Thompson, I feel like the Lakers are one of the teams, even when they were healthy, this is one of the teams he can be successful against. As a matter of fact, this year, he almost reached over 20 in all 3 games. Because his entire offense damn near depends on either, well, let's just say this, with the ball, it's get downhill or nothing almost. You can do that against LA. It's one of the reasons I wasn't buying them being contenders when they were healthy. Even before that OKC massacre, I was like, y'all watch the Lakers this year, right? They don't have perimeter defense. Not anywhere near enough of it to be considered a contender, and just defense as a whole. With those 2 out, I think Amin will still be able to get his game off. I think KD is, look, if he can't be successful against this Lakers team, I'm saying that as if there's a reason for him to struggle. I know the Rockets have struggled down the stretch. I don't really even know what the Lakers do to make him struggle here. I don't. I know there was one game as we were winding down and LA was on the uptick. They basically had KD initiating the offense. It wasn't working. Highly doubt you'll be seeing much of that here. Ime Udoka has been experimenting with how to use Reed Shepherd in lineups with Amin Thompson. I felt this was specifically for the playoffs, so they don't get basically zoned out of existence. They at least have another option out there that a defense will have to fear. I mean, for the Lakers to win this short-handed, you would really need Houston to just completely collapse on both sides. They would have to get put in drive and kick hell, which I guess there's a world where LeBron can create for some of the shooters out there. They still have Kennard. You're going to have Rui out there, especially since he's going to have the ball. There is a way for them to get their offense off still. But even then, I'm imagining now a floor that doesn't have LeBron, Luka, or Austin Reeves on it. When you get to that next unit, just no, bro. No. Let's not make this more complicated unless one or both of the guards come back, which they already tried the horse tranquilizer thing with Luka. There was excitement for a second as they said he was going to be evaluated. He is still out. That is a hamstring. That's not something you can just magically repair. Austin, same deal. Even if they come back halfway through the series, are they going to be that great? We can't see that from here. Too many moving variables without even thinking too hard. Houston in 5 or 6. If they lose this series, if this goes 7, launch them to the moon. Philly and Boston. Oh, we meet again. Off the top of my head, I don't think the Sixers have beaten Boston in a playoff series since, I'm just going to say it without checking it. It's probably been back since the Dr. J days. Not that that has much to do in the way of analysis here, but we've seen some version of the Embiid Sixers versus the Jays Celtics a couple of times, and Embiid is not even going to be here for this one. If he were, I do think this would at least be interesting. I kept my eye on the Sixers the entire year. I expected much worse from Embiid and PG. Honestly, this roster made it as far as they possibly could. The fact Joel was even out there putting up the numbers that he was putting up is incredible. However, he's just cursed. He's out with that appendix surgery. It's already been ruled out for game 1. He's probably not rejoining this series if you look at the timetable. This has happened to a couple of guys. Even if he did come back magically, it would probably be too late. And even then, that still wouldn't, in my opinion, change the outcome. Especially this version of him, Boston is putting him in space. Very same thing they're about to do to Andre Drummond. Yeah, without Joel, this isn't even as fun to really take seriously. Boston has been a top defensive and offensive team the entire year. They've got many different lineups they can play. They can play big with a traditional big using the Myers Kata. They can go small. They can space the floor. The Sixers, I don't think they match up well defensively for what they're about to witness. Just because it's Boston and I have seen some things, and PG came back from his injury way better than we thought he would for the most part. There's a world out there where for whatever reason Boston drops a game. These Sixers would not be upsetting the Celtics this year. I will take my L if for whatever reason on this pale blue dot they figure out a way to do so. And last and least, I definitely spent pretty much the last day or two prepping Charlotte and Detroit. Would have picked Detroit anyways, but at the time I'm recording this, we are almost certainly going to get the Magic and Pistons. Okay, well, I suppose if the Magic come out like they did in this game and hit every shot, and they're getting the good side of Paolo, sure, it could be a series. Only issue is they're doing this as I speak to the Hornets and not Detroit, who has been very sound defensively the entire year, been very deep, and based on what they've shown throughout the season, should comfortably put the Magic away. I'm not thinking too hard about their split regular season series. Paolo didn't play one, Cade didn't play one. 2 of them happened before November was over. The team that does eventually do it is going to need to be pretty potent from 3 to start. And while Detroit is not a great 3-point shooting team themselves, neither are the Magic. So yeah, hypothetically, Desmond Bane could get hot. The team could overall just be hot. They could get one here. Based on how Paolo's been playing to round out the year, what the Pistons found, and possibly having Dennis Jenkins really step into that second creator role, the ball movement. Funny enough, the Magic do kind of have one side of this down where you could see how they could make some games close and maybe even, like I said, get away with one. They have the bodies defensively. What I don't think they have, aside from shooting right now, would be the depth, the cohesion, because Coach Mosley might be meeting his end. And I haven't seen anything from Paolo or Franz that leads me to believe they're gonna start attacking Duncan Robinson and successfully make enough out of that to pull off some upset here. It's just, yeah, another one I'm just not complicating. I could see some of the games being close, but I have more respect for Detroit than this. Like I was saying, even if it had been Charlotte, I think the Hornets offense is just too simple. For a playoff series against an elite team, it would have been too simple. I'll take Detroit in 5. Yes, there was still a very late West Coast game going on when I said Magic and Pistons was last and least. Yeah, bro, I'm exhausted, okay. Doing playoff predictions is always fun with this goddamn play-in that ends basically 12 hours before the first game. But look, it's a good thing it's the AC game. Whoever the Thunder get out of this, the Warriors or Suns, they're going to beat them both, all right? It's not going to be a miracle Steph series that beats the Thunder. They don't, as a team, match up well with them. The Suns also don't match up well with them. They got them one time this year. OKC did not have both their bigs. Well, they had one of their bigs. I'm just saying they weren't fully healthy. OKC, if they lost a little bit of hype to you this year with some of the specific games they lost, it does not mean they have any shot at losing a 1-8 series. I do think either of these will be fun. Steph versus OKC for old time's sake. Suns have got a good stash of wing bodies. I could see where they would go with it. But with all the options the Thunder have, the depth, the MVP, the defense, seriously, if they drop a game to either of these teams, it's just one of those things that happens, right? Don't overthink it. OKC will easily be advancing to the second round regardless of who they get here. And on their side of the bracket, they will actually probably just be easily going to the conference finals. Let's get that out of the way. Well, those are my predictions for the East and West. Let me know what you think about each series. As you saw, there were some that I actually did try to deep dive, and there was others just not really worth that much time. But yeah, let me know what you think, while also hitting the like button, subscribing, and hitting the bell next to my name if you want notifications every time a new video drops. Appreciate you watching, and I'll see you all on the next one.